Let's watch a CNN panel, this time with Catherine Rampell, as they discuss the shortcomings of the Trump administration and their plans to tackle these economic issues it seems they were voted in to handle.
Trump got elected with a mandate to bring prices down. As I have said many a time, presidents do not actually have the ability to, turn the dial up or down on prices. And in fact, Trump doesn't even have concepts of a plan for dealing with inflation. He signed an executive order that basically assigned his cabinet members to come up with concepts of a plan for dealing with inflation, for bringing down costs. There is a long history, of course, of presidents begging OPEC to pump more oil, and maybe it'll work this time. I don't know.
It could.
We'll see. But none of that is actually going to address the reason why inflation has been stubbornly high, including that grocery prices continue to be high. Egg prices are now at an all-time high. That's because of bird flu. That's not anything Trump did. But meanwhile, he's telling the CDC to stop issuing data and public communications about bird flu, which is probably not helping the situation. So to the extent that the American public voted for him to deal with prices, I have seen nothing in the agenda so far that would actually achieve that.
But hey, she's an economist. What could she possibly know about the economy, right? She's clearly just woke, but no, obviously she's correct here. Trump campaigned on his ability to lower prices and how Democrats made them bad, yet Kamala had direct policies, which she could have enacted on day one to address the prices, and we're seeing that Trump has no real economic plan. All his priorities are these cultural issues. We're not getting lower egg prices on day one. They're actually higher, again, not directly because of him. But instead, we're getting trans girls out of badminton and birthright citizenship revoked, none of which are going to help bring down grocery prices, if not obvious. And as she mentioned, threatening OPEC or signaling to them is something that every president does to little avail. I mean, Trump actually slashed OPEC last time, which raised gas prices on people during COVID, and nobody talks about that. But hey, MAGA definitely gets the Fell Forward Award this time around.
Gas has come down a lot in the
Sure,
past
and
year.
it will go down more if he has Saudi Arabia playing ball. And they showed last administration, Trump 1.0, that they were willing to play ball. They came to the table to negotiate with Israel over normalizing relations. They did lower gas prices and increase demand.
They also raised gas
pumping.
prices when he asked them to during COVID.
But they are actually, just yesterday, they announced that they're going to invest $600 billion more in the United States.
That's about as much as they committed to buying weapons under Biden.
But wait a minute. We can't have it both ways here. We can't say that it's true that lower costs of fuel bring down prices and yet say, as he's hammering on drilling and getting the international markets to increase their supply, that he isn't talking about prices. He quite literally is in inflation.
Oil production in the United States is already at an all-time high.
It is.
We are producing more crude oil in this country than any country has in history ever. Mm-hmm. The problem is not oil supply at this point. That's not the main issue that consumers are facing. The main issue is that there are other categories of goods and services that have very high prices that Trump has done nothing to do. And in fact, he actually undid a Biden-era executive order to try to cap out-of-pocket costs on prescription drugs.
Yeah, I mean, the issues are in the supply chain mostly. It's pretty clear when demand raises and the supply chain can't keep up with it. Inflation, a lot of it is still just feeling the shocks from COVID, as Catherine said, and it only really takes a little bit of critical thinking to understand this. We already drill more oil than any country ever has in history. We have our highest level of energy independence that we've ever had in history, and prices are still a problem. So clearly, this effect on prices is minimal, and just drilling a little more or something isn't going to cause this drastic drop in prices. And we saw it on the campaign trail. Trump doesn't really have an idea to tackle prices outside of that. His only response was drill, baby, drill, and mass deportation, of which is going to raise prices, if anything. But every single thing he proposed only stands to raise prices. Tariffs, lowering corporate taxes, all of these things trickle down in no way to the worker outside of, hey, you're going to pay more when you go to the grocery store. He's overturning Biden executive orders just to do it at this point, like the one that caps what you could pay out of pocket for medicine going forward, because why not, guys, right? I mean, he's clearly so concerned with getting these prices down for people.
Get more people back to work. I'm glad you brought that up, because not only is he threatening to deport a large portion of people
who are here illegally.
He's also planning to de-document people. He is cutting off legal pathways to come here. In fact, a few minutes ago, the New York Times just reported that he is ending the parole program that allowed Ukrainians to come in here and potentially causing all of those people to lose their work authorization.
And the majority of Americans, as Harry Enton reported on this network over the past couple of days, not only support deporting illegal immigrants.
These are legal immigrants.
Why don't you let me finish talking, Catherine?
Because you interrupted me, and
I'm
I
going
was
to finish
saying
what I had to say. Not only do they support deporting illegal immigrants, people who have committed crimes, but they also support less immigration as a whole, which was something surprising to many people as that poll came out. In the past 4 days, President Trump has done. This is not a bait and switch. This is the reality. You just don't want to hear it.
No.
In the past 4 days, President Trump has done more than Biden did in 4 years. That's the reality. He continues to keep promises that he made to the American people. When you talk about oil and gas, he cut burdensome.
It's just a smooth moving of the goalposts that you see here. When we're talking about the supply chain and people getting to work and filling these jobs, Trump is objectively pulling from a large part of the workforce, which is objectively going to pull from our ability to do this as effectively as we need to. He is minimizing what the workforce will be going forward also, which will hinder our ability to do this in the future. Also, as to what she's saying, it kind of depends on what you look at. Most young people tend to favor immigration, more immigration even. People on the left are fine with immigration. Minority groups are fine with immigration where it's at. It's those on the right, those above 50, and white males who oppose immigration the most. And objectively, our workforce benefits from this, from all kinds of immigration, honestly. And if there's no plan in place to replace those benefits that we see when you're removing them, then it's obviously going to have a detrimental effect. And if your response to that is just, wow, well, people want this, LOL, they voted for it, libs, then I can assure you we're all cooked.